Alright everyone, I've heard your calls to have a platform other than Patreon to fundraise on now. Because I don't do the real-life activism thing, and I'm not like, constantly talking about offensive topics, and I'm basically covering current events, I don't really sit there worrying if Patreon's going to kick me off their service. But a lot of you don't feel comfortable using it, and I believe in the free market sort of choice that exists online, so I'm now on Hatreon. The most ironically named, in fact, I would say slightly unfortunately named website. I know it's a tip of the hat to the idea that hate speech is allowed on the platform, so they're not going to kick you off if you said a racial slur or something, which I think is commendable. I support that aspect of free speech. It's not free speech if it's significantly limited, outside of, slander and things like that, criminal harassment or something. But I'm now there, link in the description. For those of you who do want to support me but do not want to use Patreon, that's where I'll be. I know that there are other alternatives. Some people are telling me get a Bitcoin wallet, give a paypal.me link. My apprehension about using PayPal's own wallet system for direct donations is that wouldn't that open me up to people doing on PayPal what they could do to some people on Patreon, which is like a rating campaign or something like that. That could happen. I don't personally think that's the safest way to go, especially since all these other fundraising platforms, they use PayPal preferentially as a way to pay you out. So if your PayPal gets targeted, you could be in some deep shit. I think I'd rather keep that behind a wall using some other site. So Hatreon, I think, is the way to go. It just makes sense. If you look at their TOS, it's basically Patreon in every possible way, but a stripped-down TOS. It's the same. In fact, I don't understand why anyone would use Patreon if there's an alternative with less TOS. It's like even if you get in trouble on another platform, Hatreon doesn't even care. So it just sort of makes sense to use it. And it's something, if you've used Patreon, you're going to be used to the feel of Hatreon. Now, I believe that you have to request an invitation to use the site. Now, with me, I think it took less than 48 hours to receive the confirmation. Then you just plug it in, you make your account if you intend to donate. That is one thing, though, that I would say this directly to the people who run Hatreon. You should dispense with the invitation thing if you want. Right now you've got a lot of major content creators, maybe less actual donors. If you want to draw them onto your site and start making that money because you're getting a small cut of that, you should dispense with that. Maybe just have people do the invitation thing if they intend to raise money on the platform as opposed to just being a donor. Like give them a page saying, oh, you will waive this. You can make an account right now if you just want to donate. However, if you want to make money, you need an invitation to get full access. That would probably be, you should switch to that ASAP, because your site will probably grow rapidly because political individuals, people who talk about social affairs, current events, they're fleeing a lot of these platforms. It's just the same advice I've given to VidMe. Unfreeze the politics category. It just makes sense. So I'll be raising funds there if you choose to support me. Again, it has nothing to do specifically with worrying about Patreon so much as a dozen people at this point have told me they're not using Patreon anymore, but they still wanted to support me. If that's your will, then you now have the option to do that. And on a site, and this is the good part, it's basically like Patreon. It functions, it looks basically the same. It needs a couple of tweaks to it, but ultimately it's functional, it looks good, it's easy to use, and there's no learning curve for people who've already used Patreon. Yeah, you couldn't ask for really much of an improvement there. It's pretty good. That's about all. Peace out.